Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk, and recently I got invited to a game development competition called the Progressive Game Jam. This jam was hosted by fellow YouTuber MistTree, and me and 3 other game developers would create a game within 48 hours. The twist being that this jam was progressive, meaning that there would be 3 rounds. For the first round, each contestant would have to make a game, and then the worst game would be eliminated from the jam. Then, in consecutive rounds, the remaining contestants would have to build upon their previously created game, adapting it to a new theme. This concept sounded really cool, so I was in. Fast forward a few days and the jam started. The theme that was announced was the Devil's Price, and I hopped straight into Google Docs to start drafting out some ideas for the game I wanted to make. Honestly, this was a pretty interesting theme in my opinion. The only thing I could really think of was some kind of trade-off system, where the game would revolve around some sort of mechanic which gives the player a short-term gain, but hinders them in the long run. But then I scrapped that whole concept and said, screw it, I want to make a rhythm game. I know this is kind of out there, but as I was drafting ideas, I had the kind of realization that whatever idea I ended up with, I would probably just end up making another generic platformer or top-down shooter game, with some theme-related gimmick. I really didn't want to fall down this path again, like I feel like I do in so many game jams, which is maybe just a me problem. So I thought of a unique genre that I wanted to try out, which in this case was a rhythm game, and decided that I would weave this theme into the game somehow. And that somehow ended up being through the story. Essentially, I came with the idea where you'd play as this guy who can't stop dancing. The reason being that he brought an extremely low-priced boombox from the devil, and now he's cursed forever. Now, as much as this guy likes dancing, he doesn't want to be stuck dancing forever, so he tries to perform a perfect dance to stop the boombox. But the devil won't allow that, so he sends his minions out to try to stop the player. So in order to complete the perfect dance and defeat these minions, the player must dance around to the beat in 4 cardinal directions, shooting note attacks at oncoming enemies. Now I know this idea is super goofy, and I know this is kind of the cheap way of doing things in a game jam, but whatever, I'm just here to have some fun. So enough talking, let's get into making this game. I started off by making a new Unity project and got straight into coding the dance mechanic for the player. Thankfully the system was not too complex, and all I really had to do was set an animation and shoot a projectile in the appropriate direction when the player presses the W, A, S, or D keys. And in-game, you can now see that depending on the key I press, the player shoot out a projectile in a different direction. Next up, I figured I should get started on the actual rhythm/beat system for the game. Now, I'll be honest, I've never made a rhythm game like this before, so I wasn't completely sure about how to go about making this sort of beat system. But I tried my best and ended up with this. Basically, I just made a super long Unity slider that would move slowly to the right, which corresponded to the length of the song. I also made a separate camera to render UI and made this camera a child of the handle on the slider so the handle wouldn't appear to actually move when it really was. And with that basics of the system sort of done, I moved on to making a bit of art for the game. First, I made this character guy who had an idle animation, as well as 4 unique dance animations depending on what the direction the player dances in. I also made this note art for the player's projectile, which is actually a recolor of a sprite used in my game Slimekeep. And if you know Slimekeep, you may have noticed that the player in the game is running around without a good pair of shoes. But I don't want you guys to face the same problem, so that's why I partnered with Vessi to sponsor this video. If you don't know, Vessi makes super comfortable and breathable shoes that are also 100% waterproof, great for any kind of unpredictable weather. Seriously, I can run them under my faucet and put them on my feet completely dry, which I think is super cool. The reason Vessis can do this is because they're actually made of a material called Dymatex, which also serves as a dual climate knit material, keeping your feet warm in the winter and cool in the summer while also keeping them dry year round. Speaking personally, I just really like how Vessis look. I have the men's everyday classic, and I just think it's super clean looking while also being super practical and comfortable. I've also really found the waterproof functionality helpful because I hated how my old shoes would always accumulate water on the tops after a rainy day, getting my socks wet. But I haven't had this problem at all with my Vessis, which is pretty nice. So check out Vessi. They're currently having an early Black Friday sale, and they're even giving away a pair of socks to the first 100 pairs of shoes sold using my code SOCKSBenBonk. Thanks Vessi for sponsoring this video. I then spent some time setting up this art, as well as just making the scene look good in Unity. Eventually, I ended up with this, and things were looking much better. Next up, I created an enemy for the game and worked on the actual enemy spawning system. I also added in the player projectile art, which I forgot to add in before, and now the game was really starting to feel alive. But now it was time to actually work on adding a song to this game, which is one of the most vital parts of the experience. I didn't really have time to create a song myself, which would probably just be terrible anyways, so I decided to try to find a song online that was free to use and also sounded good. And eventually, I remember this song I've listened to a bit called Valleys by Chicken Beats, which is kind of a synth-wavy, electronic-y song that I think sounds really good and will work well in a rhythm game due to its consistent beat. And here's a little snippet of this song so you can get a feel of what I was going for. But anyways, it was now time to actually set up the notes for the game using the system I created before. And I quickly realized this wouldn't be a walk in the park. Essentially, I had to place every beat onto the slider at the appropriate time, manually. Now, I'm still not totally sure how actual rhythm games do this, but this system was quite tedious on my side because of how I initially created it. But regardless, I got started mapping notes. And to make this process a bit easier, I imported the song into my video editor, which I just used to view the audio waves of the song so I could easily mark where each beat was. And after quite a while, I marked every beat in the song. Then, since I set the frame rate of the project to 100, I could somewhat easily translate these marks to beats on the slider. So I proceeded to spend so long manually placing every note for the song. Marking the beats beforehand did help quite a bit, but it really just would have been way more ideal to create a better note implementation system, however you do that. But whatever, I eventually manually placed all the notes, and now the game was actually kind of playable. It was just super satisfying to see all the notes match up with the beat of the song. However, there was still quite a bit left to be done. Mainly, I re-added the enemy spawning system, made it so that the player can only dance when their bar was touching a beat, and if they tried to dance while not touching a beat, they wouldn't be able to dance for a second. And now the core game was actually kind of done. I just needed to work on a ton of polish. First, I added some post-processing to the game, which as usual just made it look way better. Next, I added the screen shake when the player hits a beat, which was super satisfying. I also added a particle and flash effect to the player's hitbar, and an effect if the player misses a beat for some visual clarity. Also, there were a few sections of the song where the game beats were slightly off beat from the actual song, so I had to spend like 2 hours editing the placement of beats and making sure they are perfectly aligned. Yeah. But moving on, I started creating a basic start screen for the game and ended up with this. I decided to name the game The Devil's Dance because alliteration and stuff. Then I remembered that I actually needed to implement the Devil's Price theme into the game, so I started working on a backstory/tutorial screen. First, I made a bunch of sprites such as this groovy boombox, a suspiciously low-priced price tag, and this extremely goofy looking devil. Then I just went kind of head under and worked on the screen and ended up with this. Finally, I made a basic win screen and lose screen, built the game, uploaded it to itch.io, and boom, we were done. Here's what the final game looked like with music and everything. Overall, I'm super happy with this game and how I was really able to try something new. But we still had to look at the results of the first round of the game jam, where one of us developers would be eliminated and wouldn't be able to continue working on their game. But before I reveal that, I just want to let you guys know that I'm actually running the 4th BenBonk game jam on November 25th, which will be a 72-hour long game jam, though contestants will have a week to create their games. Games can optionally follow a theme announced at the start of the jam, and as an additional challenge, all games must follow a secret limitation also announced at the start of the jam. So if this sounds cool to you, check out the link in the description. And sorry for the short notice, but it should be a pretty fun event, and I hope to see you guys there. Anyways, so I'll just pass it over to the host of the jam, MistTree, to reveal the results of this first round.
Now for the judging. Coming in at first place we have Phildev. This game was really amazing and such a fun time. Although it had its flaws, we all enjoyed our time thoroughly. The music was calm and nice, and there was only really one bug. Check out Phildev's video for more on that. Now, in second place, Madworks. Such a fun game and a well-earned spot. Music had a good kill all demons vibe, and there were some bugs, but that's expected for this time frame. This game is recommended for sure. And for third place and the last person to make it into round 2 is Dev Banana. The game, although basic and unpolished, was still a good time, and the music was what really carried it over the mark. And now for last place, unfortunately, we have BenBonk. Although a fun game, it just didn't really have that juice it required to take it higher. Still a fun game that's worth your time.
So yeah. I was eliminated first round. Honestly, I was quite surprised by this announcement, because although kind of simple, I think my game is pretty fun and somewhat unique, at least for me. But it's totally fine, I had a great time competing, and the rest of the contestants made super neat games themselves, so congrats to them. Anyways, that's all from me for now. If you want to play the game, the link's in the description, as well as links to MistTree's videos and all the other contestants' videos. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.